Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farooq Batafi. Viewers, in this program, repeatedly we have mentioned the importance of Pakistan settling its international borders, which includes, of course, the issue of Kashmir and by improving the relationship with its neighboring countries. And in this program last week, if you remember, I emphasized this point, that it is very important that India and Pakistan build bridges. And I pointed out that given that now Pakistan's civil and military and all the elements of power are on the very same page, on the very same line, it is high time India, that keeps on bickering and complaining that Pakistan maybe doesn't have that kind of concentration or focus of power, should capitalize on that opportunity and build bridges. Unfortunately, we saw a joke being played in its place. For example, there was, after the new Prime Minister took over, there was a letter that came from Narendra Modi, which was replied in due course. And the Prime Minister of Pakistan, in his letter to the Indian Prime Minister, invited his side to actually engage in dialogue, constructive dialogue, especially on the sidelines of UNGA summit that is going on in New York right now. But astoundingly, India initially accepted it, and then India walked back. And that is not all. We are accustomed to that kind of behavior. It has been happening for quite some time. But this time, Indian Ministry of External Affairs, their readout, their handout, broke all the norms of diplomacy that we saw. It personally singled out the Prime Minister of Pakistan and attacked him. After that, we saw a tweet coming from the Prime Minister of Pakistan. One has to thank God for the fact that our new Prime Minister uses Twitter, because it is the age of Twitter. After that, India, despite the fact that the Prime Minister did not name anybody, but India has been creating a lot of fuss about it. What happened is the biggest question. One aspect, one possibility, and I'm going to give you 4 or 5 theories, and after that you are free to make your mind, and we are going to ask our guest as well. The first one is Rafale controversy. Indian government, the current government, when it was procuring fighter jets, it cancelled one contractor, Indian contractor that was established, and went with nepotism. And that's why the Prime Minister of India is being asked to resign by the opposition. This is one very important thing. The second thing, of course, has been going on for quite some time, and that is the crisis in India, in Kashmir, human rights violations by the Indian authorities there. And that's why India keeps on trying to actually shift a focus to security matters rather than human rights. This is the second, and UNGA summit is going to take place, and their Foreign Minister of Pakistan is going to speak. Indian government, current government, has been repeatedly saying that Pakistan should not mention Kashmir. So this can be that as well. The fourth very important thing is melting down of Indian economy. If you are looking at Indian economic fundamentals, you know that Indian economy is struggling right now. Their market is melting down. It can be that as well. And the final very interesting thing is India, whenever it wants to seek some rent from the West, some benefit, it starts warmongering. And through that, it usually gets whatever it needs, because the world tries to calm India down and then bribes it. In 2002, they actually signed an MIA agreement, information sharing agreement on military. In 2008, they actually gave India a nuclear deal. And it seems at this moment also something of the same sort might be happening. We are going to talk about all these matters and more. In order to help us understand these issues, we are joined by a very distinguished panel. We are joined by Sayyida Abida Hussain Sahiba, former ambassador to the US. She is also a politician in her own right and intellectual as well. Thank you very much, ma'am, for being part of the program. Next to her is Brigadier retired Salim Batsab, who is a defense analyst. And you must have seen me introducing many defense analysts, but he is literally a defense analyst, been associated with defense and is an analyst. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Asmatullah Niazi sahab, senior journalist and analyst, our very own. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program as well. Abida Hussain Sahiba, I have to start with you. What went wrong?
Between India and Pakistan?
Yeah, Pakistan is actually inviting India to come to the table, dialogue table, and all of a sudden we see this flip-flop coming from New Delhi.
Well, this is not new. We have always been interested in coming to the table. India, unfortunately, is not. India apprehends that we will raise the Kashmir question, which she does not in any way want to discuss. So India's current standoff is not unusual and not unexpected either. And I have the opinion that so long as Narendra Modi is heading government in India, there can be absolutely no hope of any breakthrough between India and Pakistan.
So that's actually an open-ended thing then, because we don't know whether he's going to return to power or not in India in 2019.
Likely to get another term.
Okay, likely to get another term if he survives all these controversies that I've just mentioned. Let me bring in Brigadier Saab. So your take on what went wrong?
I think there are numerous factors. I'll try to cover briefly one by one. India walking back or not agreeing to the two foreign ministers to meet on the sidelines of UN General Assembly is indicative of many weaknesses attached with Indian internal politics, even within their armed forces.
Okay.
But at the same time, they want to cover up those weaknesses by creating warmongering.
Can you tell us more about the military weaknesses, because that is very interesting.
First, let me touch upon the political weakness.
Okay.
As we all understand, Narendra Modi is a prime minister who was on the ban list for being killer of Muslims in Gujarat.
Right.
He would never get visa for Europe and even for America. Today
up till 2014 actually,
right,
when he became the Prime Minister of India.
After that he got
his name was removed from the no entry list.
It was American picking up him as a new darling of America, as a strategic primacy given to India, and that has actually got Modi off the hook. But his BJP party, his government is there in India because they raised Islamophobia, they raised anti-Pakistan phobia within their country. And at the moment when they are doing that, why they are doing that? Because now election season is there. Out of 28 Indian states, there are going to be election in about 11 states.
But is it not true, Brigadier Saab, that it is always election season in India? In one state or the other, they have election all 4 years.
So, but now December is the start time. But what is different this time is that out of the 12 states, there are 5 very prominent states which are having independence movements similar to Kashmir. For example, Nagaland, Mizoram, Tripura, Chhattisgarh. All these states are having the insurgency within the state or, say, independence movement.
Okay.
So this is one factor. They have to raise anti-Pakistan narrative in order to get the vote.
I have to ask why. Why does it sell there? And I'm going to come back to you and ask you about the military weaknesses as well, because maybe we don't highlight that much. But let me go to Niazi sir. Your take, sir?
Farooq, I think it was too early to ask for resumption of talks because you see, you are not settled on as yet the Pakistani side, and they are rightly the Brigadier Saab rightly said.
Hang on. Define settling down, sir.
Settling down, because you are in a process of moving and planning stages. Even today, you had a meeting of Council of Common Interest, and lots of things discussed in that meeting as well. I think there would be more surge in anti-Pakistan sentiments in India, because you see, Brigadier Saab rightly said that there is a electioneering Even today, there were two big public meetings in India, one addressed by Modi in
Various parts of India, right?
yes, and in UP, Rahul Gandhi addressed. Rahul Gandhi clearly mentioned, he raised the issue of Rafale, but Modi ignored, totally ignored. And I think
this actually brings me to a very interesting question. We just had elections in Pakistan. I didn't hear anybody from our political spectrum bashing India or saying that we are going to just do this to India or that to India.
But
why does anti-Pakistanism sell in India,
because
a country that is 6, 7, 8 times bigger than us?
Farooq, there is a BJP, and BJP led by Modi always raise and increase anti-Pakistan sentiments in India. You look at you can trace the history even during 4 years.
Right.
Whenever there are elections, they raise the anti-Pakistan sentiment, and sometimes
but my
they were.
question is not
sometimes
why they raise it. My question is why
because
is it
you
what?
see, because they are, extremists are ruling in India now, and their supporters are RSS and such elements who take these kind of sentiments as positive, not negative. But when there is a Congress,
Sir, when I come back to you, I'm going to talk about the Rafale controversy, and I have to understand what exactly can it cost the sitting government in India. Because Rahul Gandhi, by the way, continues to demand Narendra Modi's resignation. And there are other liberals who keep on asking that as well. But Begum Sahib, I have to come back to you, and the question is, why does anti-Pakistanism sell in India, whereas anti-India sentiment doesn't sell in our elections? None of the political parties was visibly bashing India at the time of election.
Well, you know, we have a far more reasonable and balanced attitude. India suffers from Pakistan phobia.
Okay.
And many of her politicians find it fruitful to whip up this phobia at the time of election. The BJP led by Vajpayee was a little calmer, but led by Narendra Modi, Pakistan bashing is an all-time favorite of theirs.
Verbally or physically? Because I remember Kargil, that took place in Vajpayee's time. And then I remember 2002 build-up on our borders that, by the way, continued for 1 whole year. So he was physically perhaps more violent than Narendra Modi.
Yes, he was verbally
Modi is more violent.
more reasonable.
Okay.
Now, the present situation, I think, is going to maintain for some time. I don't see any let-up on the Indian side. I think that their Kashmir policy is going to maintain.
Okay.
They keep committing genocide, they keep committing atrocities. The world, sadly, turns a blind eye and a deaf ear. So personally, I feel that this impasse is going to continue for some time.
Right. Ma'am, before I came to you, Niazi Sahab was saying that the Prime Minister of Pakistan or the present government of Pakistan is in the process of settling down. So at this moment, perhaps Pakistan should not have initiated this. Is it not true that by starting or actually asking for peace or dialogue, Pakistan gains moral high ground?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think if we had ignored the Indian context for the time being, it would have been better, particularly because the government is new, so therefore it was under no compulsion to turn its attention to the Indian question, knowing fully well that it's going to be rebuffed. So, and I don't think that we win any brownie points in the world with India's bad behavior.
Okay.
So I think it would have been better if we had left the matter alone for the time being.
Right. Brigadier Saab, you had to tell us about the military weaknesses, and you can respond to either of the speakers as well. So go ahead.
I would like to answer your question that you posed to Niazi Saab. Why does anti-Pakistan
Sentiment sell in India.
Right, there are numerous reasons, not one reason. So one is BJP government is the political face of Russia, Swami Savitri, RSS. So they have extreme ideology. I will refer you to, you must have heard the statement by Sushma Swaraj sometime back in a political procession as well as on the floor of the parliament. She said, well, Pakistan, they are our brothers, they are our sisters. We have to win them back. We have to make them part of India. We have to convert them into Hindus back.
Right.
So they are part of us. They are not our enemies. You see, when you have this kind of state of mind, so you have to reflect it into your political actions in order to buy the votes. So that is one.
But sir,
Number two.
once again, everybody is commenting on the quality of their ruling elite. I want to understand what is happening on the grassroots level. People, why do they buy hate? They are richer than us. They are more accomplished. They have more soft power as well, or at least it is perceived as such. Why would you obsess? And you keep on saying that we have arrived and Pakistan has not. There is no comparison. Then why obsess about a little country sitting beside you?
Right. I think people buy what is sold to them, and especially what is the state selling to them. If the state, as a state, is selling anti-Pakistan narrative, then most of the people buy it, but not all the people all the time. There are very sane minds in India. I've been meeting many Indians outside Pakistan, people to people. There is a lot of desire on both sides of borders, Pakistan and
I would have
India.
asked you to identify a few, but I understand in the current climate, maybe that will be asking for trouble for them, right?
So, but now, your question points to another direction. India is one in a very chauvinistic mode at the moment because they have recently got really very buoyant with the strategic primacy that America has given to them. They are feeling very big now. They are trying to equate themselves with China and with European countries and with America through their media and Bollywood culture. They think they have come to mimic the Hollywood, and one is that kind of euphoria, or that is the hyperbole mode that they are moving into. That is one. Third, they're trying to take advantage of the situation, security situation in Afghanistan, American pressure on Pakistan, China, even Chinese insistence on Pakistan that we got to improve relations, even Russian pressure on Pakistan that we got to improve relations with India. No, America has been putting a lot of pressure on Pakistan that we should make peace with India, let them
Brigadier Saab,
progress.
is it not true that whenever India needs some benefit from the West, because West believes that it has to firefight and it has to ensure that both the countries don't go for war. For example, in 1998, when India and America first came together, recently after Cold War, 2002, when they staged the parliament attack, and then they built up, staged the military build-up on our borders. At that time, they got the military, agreements. In 2008, when there was Mumbai, they cashed that also and got a nuclear deal. Every time there is some scuffle, they actually threaten that we are going to war, and then West says, okay, don't go for war, and we are going to bribe you with some new toy. Is it not true?
Could be true, but I don't think the world is that simple.
The world is quite simple, sir.
No,
Donald Trump
it's
is
not.
ruling it right now.
That simplicity is not really reflective of the states, maybe some individuals, but I think Indian may be trying that, you may be right, but my take is that when in the overall scheme of things, there is a role that a state assumes. For example, India has assumed a role to counter China in the overall scheme of things of the American
And
and
somehow
the West.
we don't even challenge that assumption, that it is not basically balance of power situation. It could be interdependent, it could be collective security. I'm going to come back to you. Niazi Saab, you wanted to say something.
Actually, there are two things, two issues which the West, particularly the Americans, are pushing India against China. One is role in this region, particularly because of the CPAC, Pakistan-China economic corridor. The second biggest issue is the South China Sea issue,
Okay.
You see, as you know, that China is pushing, rather having hegemony in South China Sea on thousands of
America has actually renamed its Pacific Command
that
as
is the
Indo-Pacific Command.
yes, that is the specific issue why the Americans are pushing Indian in this region particularly, and the second, the third issue is Afghanistan, and actually
There too, they want Indian
yes,
involvement because India is going to bankroll
they
it.
want bigger role, Indian role in Afghanistan. So
Actually, we don't give credit to Americans. They are very smart as well. They don't want the Indian military there. They want Indian money there, their paisa.
Exactly.
But sir, instead of going to Rafael that I said I will go to, I have to ask you about our own profession. Why is it that Indian media starts behaving like it's very, very slow? It is mentally challenged because every time there is a tiff or even a whisper of tiff, they immediately jump on the war bandwagon and they immediately create this war hysteria.
actually, again, the Brigadier Sahib said that whenever there is a BJP government, and whenever there is a thaw between Pakistan, and there is even a little hint of thaw between Pakistan and India, the Indian media jumps into on many occasions in the past, because you see it's a kind of a sellable commodity in India. Like we have many sellable
Do you know
commodities.
why do I keep asking, why does Indian people or why do Indian people actually buy this kind of hate? I have always thought
there are two kinds of group of people. The urban people. I've been to India twice,
Yeah.
and I saw them. In Delhi, you will find a different attitude towards Pakistan.
Right.
And in
Delhi is ours.
outside,
Delhi was always ours. They somehow
exactly.
snatched it away.
I went to Ajmer, I went to Agra. People were behaving differently. So there are people in villages, like we have people in villages. They have different mindset,
Right.
and the urban population have different mindset. They have different behaviors towards the issues.
I want to understand that usually a democracy behaves in a very different manner. In America, you can see that Donald Trump might be the president, but their media keeps on killing him every day, right? It's called a circus now, or Cirque du Soleil on acid, actually. They keep on calling it that as well. In India, it doesn't seem to be the case. Either there's some kind of monopoly of media, or something is wrong with the media itself.
Again, there are two kinds of media in India too. Like we have. I mean, I was reading one of the tweet by someone, the hawkish trained media of India by Indians. That tweet was by Indian. Even they said that commando trained the Indian anchors. They were saying like this kind of thing. So you can well assess the Indian media, and there are ethnic divide as well in media, Indian media. There are two kinds of media.
I don't see the other kind of media. Because somebody said that the English channels are very hyper nationalistic. Their Urdu might be better, Hindi might be
you
better.
See, and if you
Was the other way around. They were
watch,
even more verbally violent.
If you watch NDTV, you will see different kind of a discussion. If you watch Republic TV, you will find
Arnab Goswami.
Your friend.
Not my friend. Actually, I got a telephone call a day before this outreach.
Really?
And his producer was asking that I can be on the program. The humble submission was, I have my own program, but the problem is, sir, I used to think that they are like bad, evil people. I think they are nationalistic, but that also reflects on their lack of imagination and intellect.
Exactly.
And that is the problem that I want to highlight. I want to understand, ma'am, what is wrong with Indian imagination, that it doesn't move beyond Pakistan or China at best.
You know, India is a big state,
Yeah.
but she has been always unsympathetic to her neighbors. She's had problems with Sri Lanka.
Exactly.
She's had problems with Bangladesh. She has problems with Nepal. She has problems with us.
And China?
And China, of course. So I would say that India suffers from a kind of complex which prevents her from being at peace with her neighbors.
Okay. Reminds me of Kautilya or Chanakya for that matter, who used to say that don't have peace with your neighbors, have peace with their neighbors so that you can press them.
I think also the fact that the United States has given in the last 15 years India considerable importance, this India takes to be a signal for her to be adversarial in her own locality. And then she finds no resistance from the European states. They turn their eyes away from her human rights violations.
Right.
And even within India, you know, they have old customs and practices like sati, which still go on. But the world has sort of looked away.
So basically, India is a badly fractured society, and that's why it keeps on
She is.
externalizing its
She
anger
is.
and hate, right?
That's right.
Amazingly, in recent years, I've seen that Western press has criticized every world leader, save one. They criticize Donald Trump, their own leader. They criticize Theresa May, 17 others, Putin, Xi Jinping. Only person who's spared is India's Modi. And that is astounding because recently their own actor went to a series called Quantico in America. And just because they highlighted the negative side of Indian extremism, the program was cancelled. It was dropped after that episode. So somehow India keeps on, I mean, it has a lot of power, doesn't have that kind of imagination. Is it what you're saying?
I think so. I think that India, despite being a large state, suffers from a small state complex.
Right.
And
That's very apt.
This small state complex of hers prevents her from being harmonious in her own locality, prevents her from addressing very many of the fractious issues in her own country. As has been mentioned, there are regional conflicts within India which need serious attention, but she is in benign neglect of all of that.
Right, right. Brigadier Sahab, you still have to, by the way, tell me about the military weaknesses because I want to, and there's another thing that I have to ask you. We just mentioned Kautilya, Chanakya. Dies in 200 plus BC. It has been over 2 millennia since then. In a country that might be actually exporting its talent all over the world, cannot get over a ghost of somebody who died two millennia ago. They're taking dictates from that kind of a person.
That's right. I think I'll agree with Madam Abida. Some psychologists would say that superiority complex is actually a reflection of your inferiority complex, and that is what India is suffering from. They have so many vociferous tendencies, so many insurgencies in the country, so they have to create a phobia which in the immediate neighborhood, Chankhya, Kotelya, immediate neighbor is your enemy and his neighbor is your. So Afghanistan can be taken as a very good example.
Oh, it is great.
Right? So that is
great
what they are doing.
Friend of theirs.
So who is actually running Indian foreign policy about Pakistan? It is not their foreign office, I don't think so.
It is the army.
It is their raw. It is Ajit Doval. It is called Doval Doctrine, and that is Chankhya Kotelya's manifestation on ground, that he is now running proxies in Pakistan from all possible directions.
You reminded me, back till 2014-15, he was quite visible. Right. But Ajit Doval seems to have disappeared without a trace from their public presence.
But you know, wherever Modi goes, he is always with him.
Okay.
Right? So
I hope not in his bag.
So he is on everywhere. On the sideline meeting, he is having a meeting with the intelligence world.
But tell me one thing.
Right.
Earlier you mentioned that China versus India or China versus America. Now you're talking about this realpolitik imagination where they have to keep on fighting with their neighbors.
Right.
Is there no better vision for a country that has given the world things like Buddhism, Jainism, so many other things? They only have to resort to Chanakya, Kautilya.
That's unfortunately. So every big country makes small mistakes, and this is perhaps very serious mistake.
Sir, they
that continue to
even
make.
weaponized Buddha's name. Their first nuclear bomb was called Smiling Buddha.
Right. So that speaks very low of them when very narrow-minded people, they run the state policies. If Indian economy has to take off, and they are equating themselves, their economy with China, which is a far-fetched anyway, but if they have to do that, they have to stop their skirmishes, they have to do their attitude mending, as Madam was mentioning that in SAARC countries, they are at war with every country. So by doing this,
They
they
are
will
at war
remain
with themselves.
embroiled and entangled, But now coming to your question, which is pending, what is the military weakness? I think recently our army chief showed a very big sign of big-heartedness. That was when during Prime Minister Imran Khan's oath taking, Navjot Singh, the cricketer, had come as a solo representative of India. Very good on his part, big-hearted man. But Chief of Army Staff hugged him.
Big-hearted man, but poor thing.
Right.
What their media did to him, right?
Right. So that's what I'm saying. He's a brave guy who came. But see, our army chief, heart and attitude, he hugged him, offered him, all right, I'm hearing that Sikhs are requesting Indian government, they are not listening to them, that Kartar Singh should be open, visa free for the Sikhs to come. He said, okay, we will talk about it and we can offer this to you. But see what happened to Navjot Singh when he went back. They went to the court, declared him traitor and blah, blah, blah. But he stood up. I think.
Military weaknesses.
So
sir.
that is the kind of public representative that there are people in India who want Pakistan to be a friendly country.
I mean, out
Right.
of over 1 billion, one man comes here and he is slaughtered on their television
No, you
screen.
see,
I won't be taking him as a rule, but an exception, right?
But I tell you, Mr. Pratapi, I have met a lot of Indians in Europe, in America. People to people desire is there. But coming to now, why Indian Army Chief spoke and gave threats to Pakistan. What is actually is uttering is perhaps not his own words. One, he is reflecting Ajit Dogar's mind that, okay, we will launch more proxies from east and west and whichever direction they Kulbhushan Yadav using Iranian soil, our friendly, brotherly country.
Right.
Right? He's a serving officer of
And
law.
it doesn't hurt that this time, for the first time in ages,
Right.
Indian Army Chief was promoted out of merit.
Why Army
It
Chief?
wasn't, of merit wasn't followed. The seniority principle
So
was
in
not
a democracy, an army chief gives statement, threats to a country, it is undemocratic. It is not a democratic norm. It's why did he do that? Because they are facing very, very serious problems, morale problems and physical problems in Kashmir. Out of 700,000 troops that they have in Kashmir, highest rate of desertion, highest rate of suicide committal, and so many other
Thank you
social
very much
evils.
for highlighting that.
Right?
That
So
actually
by
answers
giving
my
such
question.
statement, he is trying to do what his politicians are trying to do, create Pakistani phobia, so in order to overcome the internal problems. So I
Right.
think it speaks very low on him, but psychologically perhaps he was trying to do what his politicians are trying to do.
Right.
Create phobia.
Right. Niazi sir, what happens next?
I think as far as the India is concerned, I think we have to wait for the election to 2019. And I think
Narendra Modi is returned to office. What happens then?
I think he will have to give up his arrogance, and he will be.
I
on
thought
the,
you were saying his post.
obviously. you
Okay,
see- you
even
see-
if he gives up his post, but Ajit Doval or somebody
No,
like that
if
stays.
he is not giving his post, even then he has to come on the table, because you see, if he wants to get rid of poverty in India, because as you know that he came when he took over, he came with the arrogance and of having a Gujarat model, which cannot be implemented
In India.
entire India.
Gujarat model, correct me if I'm wrong, Gujarat model where you have to kill 2,000 Muslims. A Gujarat model where in Ahmednagar even Muslims still remain
Exactly,
next to,
exactly.
in
But-
slums next to the refuse, industrial refuse.
Yes, of
There's the
course,
Gujarat model.
But he says that that was one of the most successful.
You're
successful
probably
model.
referring to his promise of job
Yes,
creation and
job
economic.
creation, energy access of energy, and industrial development, and microfinancing. These kind of a model he wanted to implement, but he failed, miserably failed. So now I think if he wants to implement,
Are you telling me that there is a chance that he might not win, and that's why we have to wait for the elections?
even then, if he wins, we have to.
Yeah,
wait for,
but
because
is
you
it
see-
not
see-
more hurtful that people like Narendra Modi are recent phenomenon, right? 20 years ago, they hardly did matter.
He's been in the office for the last 4 years. Earlier, he'd been
I know.
in the politics for
Yeah,
a,
but
for a
India
longer
is
time.
India is 72, 73 years old now, and they were mostly ruled by Congress. Is it not heartbreaking that the people who actually claim to be liberal, moderates, or secular, they behave in the same manner when they come to power?
Actually, did you see-
Manmohan Singh was prime minister. In the final days, he was gagged by his own leadership, right? Rahul Gandhi's mother, that he shouldn't speak to Nawaz Sharif, the then prime minister.
You see, there is a dilemma with Congress leadership as well. Whenever they are in the government, they never visited. I mean, we've been inviting. Even I can recall Musharraf invited Manmohan Singh on many occasions, but he never visited.
Manmohan Singh wasn't that free a man.
But
Otherwise,
ruled-
he was.
But he ruled
and he is
India
a great
for 8
visionary.
years. He ruled India for 8 years.
Yeah.
And even his economic policies were praised, still being praised in India.
Yeah, he is a visionary, no
He's a-
doubt about it.
When he's visionary, but he could not. His vision could
Because
not.
he is not popular, he is not a politician, and he is not
his
free.
vision could not dictate him to visit Pakistan and resolve issues with us. I've been India in 2007, and everybody was saying that Siachen, Sir Creek would be resolved. But you see what happened after 2008.
Yeah, remember when Indian government actually decided that they are going to do something about Siachen. At that time, the army chief, the then army chief, actually held a presser, and there he warned that it will be a bad decision. So, ma'am, Brigadier Saab has actually just pointed out that Indian army, for institutionalized democracy, is a country that has deep roots of democracy. Their army chief actually coming out of the entire structure and issuing threats or addressing media in this way is extraordinary. Is it true that India is being dominated by this militant and military mindset at this moment?
Well, I think that the Indian military has been adversarial towards us from the get-go, 1948 onwards. That at no point have they changed their policy. For that matter, Pakistan Army is also adversarial towards and it's reciprocal. Now, the Indian Army Chief speaking out in this hostile manner at this point indicates that the Indian military is not a dormant entity. They're very active and they have a big say in India's policies. So he has made that assertion. I thought that his statement was extremely hostile and he was sort of out of line to be speaking on what is strictly speaking a foreign policy issue. As army chief, he has no business to do that. It's like if our army chief were to speak on a foreign policy issue, it would not be well received. So what was his compulsion? What prompted him? Was it a nod from Indian leadership? I don't think he would have gone that far without some sort of clearance.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. But you say that till the time Narendra Modi is in government, we shouldn't expect peace, right? But can we treat this as the new normal, which will not subside? A hyperactive army or army chief, Raw and Ajit Doval, the likes of them, permanently there, defining their country's contours or strategic contours, and then populists like Narendra Modi ruling the country. Don't you think then we have to make do with whatever we have got, and we'll have to make peace or try to build peace?
You know, Farooq, I personally, as a Pakistani, I feel really that we should ignore India.
Okay.
We should just simply ignore India. We should focus on Iran, on Turkey, on Russia, on China, and simply ignore India. That is the best way for us to treat us,
Okay.
in my opinion.
But the problem is the two neighbors that Pakistan actually shares the longest border with. That is Afghanistan, which is being influenced by India, and India itself. How can we actually say that they are not there?
No, they are, of course, they're very much there. I think we should engage as much as we can with Afghanistan. My view is that we should just simply ignore India.
Right. I wish it was easy, but you're an experienced diplomat, I'm not. Niazi sir, you want to say something, sir?
I think actually we cannot, as far as the India is concerned, we cannot ignore them because you have one of the longest border with India, and one of the most important player in the region. As far as whenever we have, we are, whether we are in UN, we are at the SARC, or any other forum, Pakistan and India dominate the situation and discussion and talks. And I think if we are able to, and we are successful engaging them into linking with Kashmir, resolution of Kashmir, and we are able to engage
Sir,
them
but
into,
the problem is India keeps on saying that we have to talk bilaterally. But the problem is whenever we try to talk to them,
Bilateral, I
they
think,
don't
as far
listen
as
till the time you don't engage the third party. And whenever the third party, may it be America, may it be Russians, may it be Chinese, whenever you engage them,
let me complete.
India asks them
We
favors.
cannot ignore the third party, the Indian Kashmiris. We cannot.
Yeah, but I
as
was
far as-
talking about international
yes,
actors.
yes. You see, they must agree to this phenomena and this fact that they are the stakeholders, one of the most important stakeholders. But completing my words, I think we have to engage them if we are able to engage them in trade, in energy corridors, in interdependence.
In energy corridor, they are opposing. Trade corridor, the only thing they want is direct access to Afghanistan, nothing else.
Till when? You see, they need
Sir,
energy
what if
resources
it is
as well.
the permanent phase?
They need.
If India
energy.
is like that.
If they want to progress and they want to maintain their GDP growth rate, they need energy resources, and they need. They have to increase their trade, and they have to lift trade barriers as well.
Right. Brigadier Saab, I'm told that we have to conclude, but sir, please go ahead.
I think what Madam was trying to say, ignore India, is in a different context that we are trying to understand. Ignoring means that
I mean, her words will be very popular with the masses.
No,
because
I just want to display my understanding. What she's saying is we should not get embroiled with India, one. Secondly, we should not be begging India for talks and
Exactly, we should
these
not,
things.
yes.
We should talk from a position of strength. We have shown them the olive branch. They rejected.
No,
Okay.
qualify that. What is position of strength and how do you speak with that?
Position of strength is when you are absolutely economically independent. You are
Then
not
you'll
under
have to
threat.
wait for another
So wait.
decade or two.
So in the age of nations, we have to wait. Over one night, no nation becomes strong. If
So
America is today superpower, they have taken
Basically,
300-400
there is
years.
agreement between you and Begum Sahiba that
No, it's a,
Interdependence
I think
will certainly lead towards the
I think
greater thought.
It's understanding of the real politics. Right? India is trying to be chauvinistic. They have a design, they have an ideology to follow. That addresses their internal weaknesses as well as that settles the external pressure.
No.
So they are trying to do that. What
Right.
we have to do is attain internal cohesion, have a strong economy, and then force India diplomatically talk to you.
And
But I think we have to follow.
How you,
Sir,
you're going to achieve this?
I am not against
economic-
crosstalk, sir, but I am told that we have run really short of time. I have to
can have
conclude
another
at this
program.
moment.
We can have another
Another time we'll talk
Sure,
about
certainly.
this. But at this moment, let me give you another idea. And that is, we all often talk about lobbying in America, in Europe as well. Why not lobby in India as well? Maybe Pakistan has to work from within India to address its image problems as well.
Just try
That
to-
might help.
Yes.
And
Right.
academia and media has to play the leading role for that.
So media is not allowed to even enter their homes.
No, our media is independent.
We'll have to wait for another century for that miracle to happen. But Brigadier Sahab, thank you very much, sir, for your time. Sayyida Abida Hussain Sahiba, always great having you in the show. Asmatullah Niazi Sahab, thank you very much for your time as well, sir. Viewers, you have listened to our participants. It is really frustrating when somebody like me, who actually believes in the goodness of people and who believes that people learn from their historical experience, and when he sees how rich India's culture is, when that kind of a person is dismayed. But sadly, at this moment, the way Indian government has actually behaved, and mind you, I've been repeatedly advocating in this country that Pakistan should build such a relation with India that maybe one day we can be called allies. But the way Indian government behaves, and this time, especially disappointing behavior, coming from MEA, Ministry of External Affairs, we used to look up to them for their high standards. The way they have behaved is embarrassing. And I tell you one more thing that is important. Maybe India has lost sight of the reality that the age we are living in. This is the age of hyper-racism. Whether you like it or not, you look like us. When you go and badmouth us, you are actually badmouthing your own creed. And when you keep on doing this, don't then complain that Indians are being targeted in Europe, in India, in America, elsewhere. Because whatever you are sowing, you'll have to harvest it as well. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.